Before the first dawn ever touched the horizon, there was Khepri, a name almost erased from memory, yet older than Ra, older than light itself. He was not born in radiance. He rose from the void, from stillness so complete that even darkness had no meaning. The world remembers the sun as warmth, as life, but Khepri remembered what it cost to make it burn. He was the motion that defied nothingness, the spark that forced existence to awaken. And when the first flame of creation flickered to life, it carried his memory within it. Each sunrise since then is not the return of light. It is the echo of Khepri, whispering through time, reminding creation that even forgotten gods still rise. They speak of Ra as the master of light, but before his name was ever spoken, there was Khepri. He carried the sun through the void, long before temples rose in Ra's honor. Yet history chose its favorite. They carved Ra's image in gold and buried Khepri's beneath the stone. The hymns that once called his name were silenced, his story rewritten, his truth forgotten. But the dawn never lies. For every time the sun ascends, it still moves by Khepri's unseen hand. Before the sun had a name, before it could speak through fire and light, there was Khepri. He did not command creation with words. He moved it with will alone. In the silence before dawn, he pressed against the void, a motion so pure it gave birth to sound, to warmth, to life. The sun's voice came later, but its first breath belonged to Khepri. And though the world forgot the silence that made the light, every sunrise still carries his wordless song. Before there was form, before there was sound, there was Khepri. Not as a god of flame or storm, but as motion itself, the first stirring in the stillness. When the void lay endless and unmoving, it was Khepri who pressed against the nothingness. No light, no sky, no creation, only the will to move, to exist. That movement broke eternity's silence. It rolled through the abyss like a heartbeat, and from it, the first light began to tremble. He was not born from the sun was born from him, a reflection of that eternal push against the dark. Every dawn since then is his memory repeating itself, reminding the cosmos that motion came before life, and Khepri came before all. Before light could rise, before time could breathe, there was only the void, still, endless, absolute. And into that silence moved Khepri. He did not wait for creation to begin. He forced it to awaken. Through will alone, he stirred the lifeless expanse, rolling the weight of existence as a scarab rolls its sphere. No gods watched, no eyes saw. Only motion, slow, relentless, eternal. In that motion, the void began to tremble. It resisted, yet it yielded. From that first strain, light was born. Khepri did not conquer darkness. He gave it purpose. He taught the nothingness to move. And in doing so, he made the universe remember what creation truly is. A struggle to rise, even when nothing moves with you. There was a moment when even light hesitated, a moment when creation itself resisted being born. And in that hesitation, Khepri moved. He pushed against the stillness, forcing illumination through the weight of endless dark. The first rays did not emerge in peace. They fought their way into existence. Each flicker burned, collapsed, and rose again, as if learning how to survive its own brilliance. Khepri watched, unmoved, for he knew nothing that does not struggle deserves to endure. Through his motion, the sun was not simply created, it earned its place. Every dawn that follows carries that memory, the echo of the first light's defiance, and the God who taught illumination to suffer so it could learn how to live. They told you the scarab was just an insect, a symbol of rebirth, a decoration on temple walls. But Khepri never chose his form by accident. He hid the architecture of existence inside its motion. The rolling of the dung ball, the endless cycle, was more than survival. It was code, a language of motion that whispered how life repeats, resets, and begins again. Each turn mirrored the orbit of stars. Each movement carried the pattern of renewal written before time began. Khepri was not sculpting the sun. He was writing the formula that sustains it. Those who watched only saw a beetle. Those who listened heard creation translating itself into form. The scarab wasn't a symbol, it was the key, and Khepri was the hand that turned it. Before the first horizon, before Ra had a name or light had a destination, there was only Khepri. He did not create the sun, he became it. From the stillness of the void, he forced motion into the unmoving, pushing light out of nothingness with no tool but will. Each rotation of his scarab form was a command. Each push, a declaration that life would resist the dark. The sun's first cry was not brightness, it was strain. The universe tearing open to let itself be seen. Khepri rose not to shine, but to remind that even in absence, existence can choose itself into being. And when the dawn finally came, it carried his silence, the echo of a god who built light out of nothing. Even Khepri, who commanded the sun from nothing, was bound by what he created. Every dawn he rose, radiant, sovereign, divine. Every dusk he fell, swallowed by the same darkness he once defied. This was the law beneath creation, that even gods must obey the rhythm of what they bring forth. He rolled the sun across the heavens, not in triumph, but in remembrance. For each rise was also a death. The Egyptians saw his endless labor, the scarab pushing light through eternity, and whispered a truth few dared to speak. That immortality was not freedom, it was repetition. And so, Khepri's glory was also his prison, a god condemned to move forever, within a cycle no god could escape. They spoke of Ra as the giver of life, but whispered the name Khepri only in the dark, because his power was not to create the sun, but to end it and begin it again. Khepri did not worship light, he commanded its death and rebirth. He could unmake what others called divine. The priests knew this, that the scarab was more than a symbol, it was a warning carved in gold. To awaken Khepri was to awaken the code of renewal itself, a force that cared nothing for order or for mercy. And so they buried his name beneath Ra, hiding the truth that frightened even the gods, that Khepri did not serve the sun. The sun served him, and still does. They said every dawn was new, but Khepri knew it was the same song, sung again and again. Each sunrise, a copy of the last. Each death, a doorway to the same beginning. In the temples of Memphis, there was once a hymn. It spoke of the sun's endless march across the void, a rhythm without end, a god trapped in his own perfection. But that hymn was erased because it revealed what the priests could never admit, that eternity is not freedom, it is a cage. Khepri's name was the key that unlocked the pattern, and so it was hidden. Yet if you listen closely at dawn, when the first light cuts through silence, you can still hear it. the lost hymn of repetition, whispering the truth that time itself forgot. They thought the soul was born once and ended once, but Khepri knew otherwise. In the shadow of the first dawn, he forged something hidden. A mechanism, unseen yet eternal, that turned within every being. It was the engine of return, the pulse that bound flesh to spirit, death to birth, memory to becoming. The priests spoke of hearts weighed and judged, but they never told what made the heart move. They feared what Khepri had built, a design that made gods and mortals equal in their cycles. When his name was buried, the mechanism slowed. Men forgot how to rise after falling. They called it fate. But in truth, it was neglect. And somewhere beneath the dust of forgotten temples, the soul's mechanism still waits, silent and turning. Every sunrise was not a beginning, but a repetition. Khepri did not just create the sun, he consumed it. Each day, he pushed the light across the sky, and each night, he devoured it whole, so it could be born again. The ancients whispered that life was sacred, yet Khepri revealed its hidden rule, that all creation feeds upon itself to endure. The flower eats the soil, the beast eats the flower. And the gods feed on the souls that praise them. To live was to die was to return. And in this endless cycle, Khepri was both the eater and the eaten, the god who became his own offering. They told you the sun gave life, but Khepri knew the truth. The sun tested it. Every dawn was not a gift, it was a question. Could creation endure the weight of its own night? The Egyptians prayed for sunrise, but they did not see what it revealed. Each ray exposed the weakness hidden in every soul, the cracks where darkness still whispered. Khepri was not the bringer of light. He was the judge of what deserved to stand within it. For the sun did not shine to comfort. It burned to reveal, and those who could not face themselves were devoured by the same light they worshipped. Khepri's dawn was a mirror. Those who passed through it were reborn. Those who failed became the shadows that followed forever. They spoke of Khepri as the god who moved the sun, but few understood he was also moving you. Every turn of the scarab, every rising dawn, was a reflection of the struggle buried inside your own being. The ancients carved his image on tombs, not to worship him, but to remind themselves that the same force pushing the sun across the sky was the same force pushing the soul through its darkness. Khepri's secret was never out there, it was within. The scarab was not only a god, it was a command to rise, to move, to transform what seems lifeless into breath again. The forgotten symbol still stirs inside you. It waits for the moment you remember that you are the one rolling your own light through the endless night. They thought the scarab was only a symbol of the sun. They were wrong. It was a mirror, one the ancients feared to look into for too long. Khepri's endless motion, the rolling of the orb through the heavens, was not merely a divine act. It was a reflection of the soul itself. Each human life, pushing forward through shadow and decay, carrying its own creation through the dust of existence. The scarab never stops, and neither does the spirit within you. It labors through darkness, unseen, shipping the fragments of death into the possibility of light. To understand Khepri is to see yourself, to realize that the struggle you endure is sacred. that within every fall, the God still moves, and in that motion, the human spirit remembers it was never truly lost. They told you gods lived in the sky, but Khepri was never above you. He was inside you, waiting. Each dawn you rise, you repeat his ancient act. Each breath you take, you mirror his motion through the void. The scarab that rolled the sun across eternity is the same unseen force that pushes your soul through darkness. Khepri is not worshipped through temples, but through endurance. Through the quiet wars you fight in your mind, through the deaths you suffer and rise from again. The Egyptians carved him not to honor the heavens, but to remind humanity that divinity moves in cycles, and that you are part of that motion. So when you fall, remember this: Khepri fell first, and every time you rise, it is his light that moves through you once more. Every soul that has ever lived has carried Khepri's weight. The struggle to rise, again and again, is not just survival, it is remembrance. Khepri's endless labor across the horizon was more than a myth. It was a reflection of the human journey. The moment when life refuses to end, when something within you refuses to stay buried. The Egyptians saw this motion and called it divine, because to rise after falling is the essence of creation itself. Each morning, the scarab pushes light through the black, and so do you, through pain, doubt, and the weight of your own becoming. Khepri's lesson was never about the sun, it was about transformation. To struggle is to evolve. To rise is to remember what you were always meant to be. Before light can rise, something must die. Khepri understood this law long before men gave it a name. Each dawn, he was reborn, not because life was endless, but because death made it possible. The Egyptians watched the scarab emerge from decay and saw a truth too vast for words. Creation feeds on its own endings. The sun's light is born from what it consumes, and so are you. Every version of yourself that falls away, every dream that fades, every silence you endure, becomes the offering that fuels your next rise. Khepri's movement across the heavens was never effortless. It was a sacrifice, repeated without complaint. To be reborn, you must first let something in you die. Only then will the dawn recognize your name and call you back into the light. You've been searching for light outside yourself, in temples, in gods, in the rising sun. But Khepri's truth was never in the sky, it was inside you. The scarab's motion was a mirror, showing what happens when the human soul awakens. When the inner sun begins to move, not outward, but inward, through layers of forgotten self. The Egyptians understood creation begins in silence. Before dawn touches the horizon, it stirs within the unseen. Khepri's light is not fire. It is movement, the quiet force that pushes you to rise, even when everything in you wants to stop. To awaken the motion within is to remember your origin. You were never separate from the sun. You are its echo, its continuation, the same eternal force still pushing through the darkness, becoming light once more. Every dawn you witness is not just a sunrise, it is remembrance, a reflection of something ancient, you. When Khepri pushed the sun across the horizon, he wasn't creating the day, he was repeating your story, the endless motion, the rising after the fall, the light clawing its way through the dark. It was always meant to remind you of what you are. Every morning, the world reenacts your own resurrection. The light that returns is your consciousness remembering itself. The darkness before it, you're forgetting. Khepri's motion was not worship, it was memory. The soul recalling its origin through repetition. So when the first light touches the earth, understand this. You are not watching a sunrise. You are watching yourself. The eternal spark, still moving, still remembering that it was never gone. They said Khepri died each night, but the truth is, he never died at all. He descended, yes, into silence, into shadow, only to remember himself again. This was his secret, self-resurrection, not through divine mercy, but through motion, through will, through the refusal to end. The cherub's path through darkness wasn't escape, it was mastery. To be consumed by night and yet carry the sun within, that was Khepri's mystery. The Egyptians carved him, pushing the solar sphere, but what they were truly recording was the human condition, the ability to rise after every collapse. Khepri teaches that death is only the pause between awakenings, that the end is never the end. When you move forward after loss, when you breathe again after breaking, you are performing the oldest act of creation. You are becoming Khepri. They said Khepri was forgotten, that time buried his name beneath temples and sand. But gods do not vanish, they transform. Khepri's disappearance was not an ending, it was migration, from sky to soul, from myth to memory. The scarab that once moved the sun now moves within you, quietly, endlessly, pushing the light of your own becoming through the dark. When the Egyptians said the sun rose again, they were speaking of consciousness, of awakening, of you. Khepri did not fade because the world forgot him. He faded because humanity absorbed him. His eternal motion woven into every breath, every struggle to rise, every dawn of understanding. The forgotten God was never lost. He only changed form. And when you rise after falling, he remembers himself through you. Every motion you make echoes something ancient. Each heartbeat, each breath, each rise from silence, the universe feels it. Khepri's eternal act was not just the birth of the sun, it was the pulse of existence itself. His rolling of the solar sphere was the heartbeat of creation, and that motion still lives in you. When you move forward, when you create, when you refuse to be still in the face of darkness, the cosmos remembers its origin. Because movement is memory, the Egyptians knew this truth. To act is to awaken the divine mechanism. To move is to remind the universe that it still exists. So each time you rise, you are not just living, you are reactivating Khepri's motion. And in that motion, the whole universe remembers itself through you. They told you the sun was fire, that it burns, that it glows, that it gives life. But they never told you it knows. Khepri was not a symbol of motion, he was awareness made light. Each dawn was not a reaction of nature, it was a decision of consciousness. The ancients said the sun sees, it remembers, it responds. It turns because it chooses to rise. When you look upon the morning light, you are being watched by the same mind that once formed you from its breath. The truth is not that the sun gives life. The truth is that it is life. And Khepri's eternal message whispers through it still. You are not beneath the sun. You are the consciousness within it. If this truth stirred something in you, don't let it fade with the setting light. There are more secrets the ancients left buried in your blood. Subscribe and let the next revelation find you before the sun remembers your name again.